Matt Carey, documentary editor, Deadline.com. Welcome to the Deadline studio at the Sundance Film Festival. We are with the Academy Award-winning filmmaker and musician Questlove. Amir Questlove Thompson.
Hello.
Welcome. Great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Your film, of course, is Sly Lives, a.k.a. The Burden of Black Genius.
Yes.
Sly Stone. He's been overshadowed in many respects, certainly in recent decades, by his personal struggles and drug addiction, but you're really reframing our understanding of him and his extraordinary, genius as a musician.
Yeah, oftentimes, what frustrates me about certain documentaries, especially when it comes to entertainment, is, you'll often hear the soundbite of like, man, so amazing, or it's a bunch of you had to be there isms, but rarely does one delve into what literally makes this person different than anyone else. And the thing is that Sly is in a position in which timing is everything, and he just happens to be the first domino of a new revolution to a bunch of rules that we are still using today in making music. Sly was at the very beginning of multi-track recording, like the idea of being the bedroom musician, doing everything yourself. Like Stevie Wonder, Prince, and Todd Rundgren, and all these geniuses do all the work themselves. That was unheard of before his period. So there's that. Him using technology, wah-wah pedals, drum machines, and we make fun of like the term like bow chicka wow wow, like that really comes from Sly. The idea of a wah-wah pedal, but also like his level of songwriting, his confessional songwriting, his use of puns, his use of language, and sad to say, him really not knowing how to navigate what happens when you get everything that you asked for. Like we dream of like one day I'm gonna da 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 da, but what happens when you get it? And oftentimes we say that, if I get that $1 million check, or if I get that house, or if I get the marriage honor of this particular person that I'm pursuing, that will be happy and fulfilled. And when it doesn't happen, there's a bunch of emotional kind of diminished returns that happen, which then causes you to doubt yourself, and then suddenly you're in a vulnerable position where you might start self-medicating or self. So my goal for this film was to really take a hard look at what we call uh, the troubled musician, the drug addict, the F up, that person, and really take an examination, because it's not just Sly's story, it's everyone's story, you know.
There are some amazing interviews in the film, archive interviews. So struck by them, of a real sweetness of Sly, a vulnerability, a shyness. And he's entertaining and sometimes really kind of outrageous questions from people. But you see him, he doesn't have a sort of protective carapace over him. And one senses how painful that must have been.
You know, the one thing that I want to do in this entire campaign, like I need at least, I would like a good 5 to 10 minutes just talking with Maria Shriver. So that opening scene, I believe at the time she was like a brand new journalist, like in her early 20s. That's Maria Shriver interviewing Sly Stone. And whenever I show that scene to people, especially in the beginning, like the amount of anger that comes out of when she just says like, and you blew it, and the anger felt. But part of me sort of takes a pause for like 12 seconds, like after the said person expresses their anger. And then I have to ask, like, but she's not wrong, right? And then suddenly becomes a that moment. But it's I admire, that was one of the main reasons why, when we started this film project, the one interview we had in the bag already, we had 7 hours of new Sly interviews. But once we fell into the Ben Fong Torres interview from Rolling Stone, the Shriver interview from '82, and there was an interview like shortly, if you remember the Grammys back in 2014 when Sly, had his moment at the Grammys. You remember the blonde, the blonde mohawk haircut. Um, those were probably more revelatory because he was experiencing in real time what was happening to him. So like right after Woodstock, you hear the trepidation of him like not knowing how to navigate. And Ben Fong asked like, what's success like? Like, what's it like to have a lot of money? What's it, that sort of thing. Um, and they do ask him questions like he's a product and not a human. So our job in making this film was to present Sly Stone, the human being, because you often hear about the genius or the fuck up, or and being human is the most important part of this process.
And we see the crushing pressure that was applied to him is that he's basically expected somehow to resolve the tensions between the civil rights movement and the emerging Black Power movement. Yeah. Now, white artists, musical artists, are not expected to. I mean, if they want to weigh in, good for you. No, Sly is like, no, you must weigh in on this. You must have a stance.
So Sly was in a very unique position because one of the first discoveries that I had was I didn't know how powerful he was as a local Bay Area musician. So from the age of 15 to 19, 20, before 1964, if you are a show that comes to town to the Cow Palace, more than likely Sly's going to be your band. Like, there's so much that we had to leave on the cutting room floor. The fact that Sly was like Sonny and Cher's band leader, like whenever any shows that came to the local Bay Area, Sly's band was the person that learned all the material and pretty much like ran the show. So, the thing is that I didn't realize that when he became a DJ, that his show was so popular as a radio, and he's very much like that character like that Robin Williams played in Good Morning Vietnam, like that morning jock. What's up, cats and kittens? And slides. Like had comedy sketches and would do his own commercials and everything. Like he without paying him, he would make like wheat checks commercials and tidy bowl commercials and all. Like he was just there was no one like this guy. And what I realized was that Sly was sort of seed planting and growing, grooming, raising the first generation of counterculture. Because those same 11, 12, 13-year-old kids with AM radio transistors listening to the Sly back in 1963, 64, as he's introducing them to the Beatles, as he's introducing them to James Brown, as he's introducing them to Motown, those same teeny boppers will be Bay Area hippies. So he had one foot inside of counterculture, Bay Area. And he's producing the Grateful Dead and what will eventually become like the Jefferson Airplane. But he has this other foot in Oakland where like so it's like the Black Power movement of Oakland and the counterculture hippie movement. It's like he was on a gang serving both sides, and I think that might mess with you somehow if you get out of the moment and realize like, wow, I'm like I got to be all things to everyone.
Yeah, you are being by its nature
Yeah.
being pulled in two opposite directions, and
Exactly.
we know when that happens. You're torn apart when that happens. You ask in the beginning of the film and then the end. For many artists you interviewed to define Black genius. And so I wanted to ask you for your definition, and I would not myself hazard a definition, but I would say that part of the, if you allow me to observe, that for Black genius to emerge in the context of American culture is extraordinary.
Yeah, it's for me the definitive, like the definition of Black genius, at least in my eyes, is the ability. Um, so there's a term we use called code switching. Is the ability to code switch and survive while being creative. Like you almost have to be creative just to allow yourself the safe space to create what you're creating. And that's often a challenge that most people don't have to subject themselves to. So, in other words, and Sly often gives himself away in his lyrics. Oftentimes, he'll talk about, Sly has to be the down with the hippies, but also when he talks about the squares and the man, like Sly also has to be the man because he's a business person, but then he also has to be a brother and down. Like he literally has to play so many roles just to exist. And I think like while you're in that moment, and if you are a living in the present type of person where you just take it 24 hours at a time, it is possible to navigate that. But it's also the moment the cog in that wheel sort of goes awry, it becomes very exhausting. And the moment it becomes exhausting, then suddenly that's kind of when you go against your own interests. So in my opinion, I think like Black genius is just the ability to see another day, which sounds like hyperbole, but I promise you, we're all just one half hour away from like making the wrong life decision that will instantly put us in a position. And even in making this film, like I would have to put myself in that category. Like life after that Oscar was a 12,000% turnaround, which luckily I was in the mind frame and with therapy and whatnot to maintain. So for me, this film and the other subsequent films I'm doing that have similar subjects, I'm trying to plant seeds in artists to learn to get out of their heads and get more in tune to what they feel inside.
Yeah, one hopes that's the path of self-protection, salvation, however one might put it. You mentioned those projects. You have an upcoming documentary on Earth, Wind, and Fire, and of course, coming up very soon, your documentary about the music of SNL.
Yeah.
For this film, for Sly Lives, going to be on Hulu very soon. So
February 13th.
People everywhere will get to see it.
Yeah, January 27th on NBC is the 50 years of SNL music, which is just, that was my joy place. Like kind of working on this Sly film was very emotionally draining. So on weekends, like it was like, we have some fun. So the joy of SNL really comes out loud and clear. It was just a passion project. So, and then Earth, Wind, and Fire, God willing, will be out in September.
All right. And Sly Lives premieres, I believe, on the 13th?
February 13th on Hulu, yes.
All right. It's an incredible film.
Thank you.
We saw glimpses, of course, well, more than a glimpse of Sly on stage in Summer of Soul, which was astounding. This film is truly remarkable. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mayor Questlove Thompson,
I
for
appreciate
being
it.
with us.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you. Thank you.